Okay, Digital Warriors, welcome back. Continuing on here, we just finished up the invasion phase of Normandy 44 here with our VASSAL module. Quick recap, 82nd and the 101st kind of got a little bit scattered. 4th Infantry Division made it upon Utah Beach fairly intact. The 29th and the 1st Infantry Division took a couple hits, as did the Brits and the Canadians over on Gold, Juno, and Sword Beach. And the 6th Paras actually made it down onto the ground in fairly good shape. So now moving on, it is now if we look at our chart, it is the German player's turn. So it's actually the real beginning of the game here. So if you look at here at the abbreviated sequence of play, it's a German player's turn. German replacement phase. There's nothing to replace because you can't replace these strong points here, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're just going on to the German movement phase. I'm going to go ahead and close this here, and we're going to zoom in, and again working left to right. We just need to start shifting tokens around. There are a couple rules involved here when it regards the German movement. So all of these units up here in Cherbourg within this this dotted border around it, all of these guys have to stay within this dotted border. So they're kind of like the defense of Cherbourg. They're not going to move out of there. They can move within it, but they can't move out of it. And what else here? This tank unit we're going to move. And a couple of these other units here, because we kind of have to stymie this this airborne drop here, this allied drop. Just looking at some of the hex stuff, I'll go ahead and explain what the different terrain is and does. So this hex here, like if we look at hex, can I zoom in further here? La Haye de Putis. I'm going to butcher these names as well, guys, so don't worry about that. Any hex that looks like this or has partial of this or majority of the hex is considered bocage, because again, this is bocage country here in France. And as you would guess, it gives you some pretty crazy modifiers when you're on defense, or attack or moving through it. So if we look at the terrain effects chart, bocage for non-mechanized units, it's 1 movement point. For mechanized units, it's 1 movement point. Combat effects, for the defender, you get 3 defensive combat bonus. I'll explain that when combat takes place. Is there an armor shift? Again, I'll go over this, and stops retreat, and I'll go over that as well. But I'll go over it as it happens, because you guys will get a better visualization of the example that way. These little blocks here, you'll see them. These are towns. You have towns and you have cities. So a city, which is like a major metropolis, are the blocks that have kind of the blue background on them, whereas these are just towns here, just the gray ones. So you'll get a better defensive combat bonus in cities. You've got rivers, and then you have major rivers, which are a little bit thicker, and they have a border around them, a dark border. This here is mixed. I guess it would be better here. This is mixed land, flat open terrain, obviously woods. Primary roads are these darker roads around here, these more maroon roads. Secondary roads are the lighter brown, and then you have hilltops and what do they call them? Yeah, just hilltops. And then we have, where is it? Sea tiles. These here is where different units will come in. I'll go over that. Obviously we got woods, hilltops, and that should be about it. So what we're going to do, we're going to start shifting units. So we need to start moving tokens to kind of crush the advance, or at least slow down the advance of the allies coming off the beach until our reinforcements can get on. Roads give movement bonuses. So again, if you look at the number on the right on the token, that's their movement allowance. Depending on the unit, you'll get sometimes if you're moving on a primary road, it's only 1/3 at the cost. So it'd be every 3 hexes would count as 1 movement point for certain units, or 1/2, or what have you. So let's start. Actually, let's start by taking a look at what we've got here. So the 82nd got really beat up. This would be a good unit to hit because we could probably eliminate them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up this armor unit. Obviously they're a mechanized unit, they're armor. They've got a movement factor of 5. So potentially moving on a secondary road, I think it's what is it, secondary road, it'd be a half, so every 2 hexes would actually be 1 movement point. So they could have they have the potential to move 10 hexes along the roads. I don't want to do that. I'm going to move them here into Pont au Abbé, this town here, and I'm going to attack this hex. The way you attack, you don't actually move into the hex. You're in the hex next to it, and you do your combat that way. And then, depending on the results, the attacker may or may not be able to take the hex from the defender. In case the defender is either eliminated or they have to retreat. So it'd be 1. Actually, it'd be half 1. So it's actually a 1.5 move there. I'm going to move this infantry unit. If we look at the chart, the terrain effects chart for moving along a secondary road here. Actually, if we cross a minor river hex for a non-mechanized unit, which they are a non-mechanized unit, it's just in E, no effect. So non-mechanized units can actually cross these minor rivers into an adjacent hex, no problem. We are moving into Bocage, so it'd just be, again, just 1 hex. But it does have a road on it, so it'd actually be a half a point. So 0.5, 1. And we're going to give him a little bit of support. We're actually going to take this unit here, move him down the road, and he is now not quite at his stacking limit. We can get 1 more unit in here because, again, the first silhouetted unit counts as free, so we really only have 3 stacking units in here. So we've got 2 points for the 4-3 and 1 point for the 2-3. So we may be able to get another one in there. I'm going to have to look and see who we can shift down there. I want to move this 4-3, and I want to put pressure on this 3-3 on the 505th here. So 1, 2. So they have the potential to move 6 hexes because, again, it's a half moving around a major road. It's a half a point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This unit here can move 4. 1, 2, 3. Actually, it's a bicycle unit, I believe. Yeah, it is. It's a bike unit. Bike units have certain rules. The rules for bike units. Let's look that up right quick. Counter display, restricted movements. I want to say that they can actually move 6 if they stay on a road in overcast weather. So we'll just say it's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just as kind of friendly markers, what I do is I'll take the markers here, and just so I can remember who's going to attack, because as you can imagine, once we get all the tokens on the board and we start pulling in reinforcements, the board's going to get really crowded. I use these markers just to let me know that I'm going to use them to attack certain units. Alright, we're going to move this guy down here. He can move 5, has potential to move 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, actually, I'm counting that wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to move him. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is a headquarters unit here. Headquarters units are what you use to call in your artillery support, and what artillery does is it gives you a combat shift on the combat results table to the right. In order to call in artillery, you have to have a headquarters unit within 5 hexes of where the combat is going to take place. And they have to be in a flipped up counter status. So if I was to move this counter, you can move five hexes, or he has 5 movement allowance points, which would be 10 hexes on a road. I could move him up to here, say, if I wanted to, and yes, he would be within 5 hexes of either of these battles. But because he moves beyond 1 hex, I have to flip him over to the move state. When a headquarters unit is in a move state like this, you can't use them to call in artillery. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift him. Let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I move him here, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to move him 1 hex to the east. He'll still be within the 5 hex limit to call in artillery on this battle here, because we really do want to put this this 82nd Airborne token out of play. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should be able to take them out with our artillery shift here, and we actually may not even need it, just depending, because we're going to get an armor shift anyway, but we'll discuss that later. And what I'm going to do, just as a reminder, I'm going to put this artillery shift token right next to him so I can remember to use them. The German player gets so many artillery call-ins per turn. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll look it up prior to combat. We want to move this tank unit, the 206 Panzer. We want to move them down. They're going to be following the road. So I believe it is what is their movement allowance on a road? I want to say it's a half a hex, or maybe a third. So on primary roads it's 1, 3. There's a B there. German mechanized units pay half a movement point for primary roads in clear and overcast. Okay, so the weather is overcast, so it's going to be a half a movement point. So 1. So he can move 10 hexes essentially, because his movement's 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's not too bad. Again, all these guys have to stay within that border. I can't move them on the first turn anyway. Let's move our Germans here. I don't like the 501st being here as a German perspective. We really need to knock these guys out of the park, or at least force them to retreat. Because if we leave them there, being that they're +1 troops, the troop quality, that can cause a lot of problems with us, or for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these guys here. I'm going to move the 6th or the 3rd of the 6th Fallschirmjäger German paratroopers, and then I'm going to move these guys up here to reinforce, because they're a little bit better token here. These are 5-3 token, and we're going to try to at least build up enough firepower to push the 501st. I'm probably not going to be able to eliminate them, but I should be able to at least force them to retreat, possibly disrupt them, and make it so that they're combat ineffective for their turn. So this guy here can move 6 hexes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we want our marker. Oops. So we can remind ourselves to kill him, and then we're going to be using him to help try to kill, let's see, we're going to use him in this battle here to try to reduce this other 82nd Airborne token. Over here we've got some choices to make on Omaha Beach. The Allies did land with a fairly significant force. Both of the 1st Infantry Division units there were reduced, but they did land with their tanks, and that can cause a problem. So the question is what to do. I'm going to leave him here because he's going to create a Zachbond with the beach here, which means that, so the bond is right here for him with the beach, which means that these units can't move to the west through here without killing him first. He's pretty much going to just end up being a sacrificial token. So he's staying. I may I'll move up these German 88s just because they do have armor, and hopefully we can reduce those tokens. I don't think we're going to be able to hold out, but we should be able to reduce those tokens. And who else here? I'm going to kind of consolidate my forces there, and I'm going to move this other, shoot. You know, I'm going to move this other anti-armor unit up here, and that's how you know a unit is anti-armor. Is the well, if you look on an armor token, so these tanks here, it's got the number in between the 3 in a gray box. That's its armor rating. 3 is kind of middle of the road. Anti-armor units have a yellow 3 or a yellow number in a red box, and we're going to use those in combat, and you guys will see how that plays out. So we're going to move these guys here, which means they've got a nice zone of control here. They've got a Zachbond here, a Zachbond there, which means the US player here are really going to have to deal with these guys, try to dislodge them before moving off the beach. Hopefully it buys us enough time as the Germans to move our reinforcements in. You can leave that Ost battalion there. I am, however, going to move this headquarters unit up towards the front, further north. Just that way I can use them to call in the artillery. So 5, he has the potential to move 10 hexes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're moving here in the city, and we just have to make sure that we flip them because we did move them beyond 1 hex. Moving further east, he's going to stay. How are they looking? They're reduced. I'm actually going to move all of these units into Bayou, just because I do want them to be ready, and they're kind of linking my lines here as the German player. They're giving us options. Move him in that city. I'm going to leave him there. We've got, what do we have here? I am going to pull this German unit further south to Crulé. The reason why is because there's just a lot of armor here, and he's going to have a better defensive bonus here in the town. I do have to pay an extra movement for moving out of a Zachbond, or out of a zone of control into a zone of control, so, but he can move 3, so he's got plenty to spare. I'm not going to attack with that. They're just there. I'm not going to attack with these guys either. They're just going to defend. Let's see. There is special rules for the 21st Panzer Division here, which are all these guys. You can see their 21st Panzer Division unit insignia there. They only, even though it says 5s on them or 6s, first turn they can only move, they have a movement allowance of 3 hexes, so we kind of have to work with that. I do want to take this strong point on this hill, strong point Hillman up here, just because it's a good place to defend. So let's move the 192nd up there. And then we're also going to move, the Allied player does have to take con. Let's move the guns up there as well. So they have movement of 3, so 1, 2, it's 1, 1, 2, 2. We should be able to defend that pretty handily. That's a good defense there. All right, moving up, 1, 2, that's 1. I'm actually kind of want to put pressure on the 6th Airborne here. If we can get them out of the game early, then that's just one less thing to have to worry about. Only problem is I don't want to leave myself open here into con and have these Allied tanks off of Juno stroll right in. So 1, 2. Let's go ahead and D up there. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. These guys can actually move 4. 1, 2. Actually, 2. Sorry, 4 hexes. 1, 2. Let's see. This guy. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to move the 125th, and we're going to try to put pressure on the 6th Airborne here and see if we can eliminate this token. So he'll go there, and he's going to have support with this German recon here. 1, 2, 3. And then on the far east, let's move these guys into position here. 1, 2. Move him up. Now those are all -1s, but that's okay. Alright. And attack. I think that's all of my units. Let me just double check here. Oh, nope. Forgot these guys down here. They have the potential to move 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. That's not right. Yeah, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just because I kind of want to reinforce Con there. And then we have our bicycle units here, which can move 6 hexes, or a movement factor of 6 if they stay on the road. So that's what, 12 hexes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright. Let's go and zoom out, make sure we didn't miss anybody. And why do I feel like I'm missing a token over here for the Germans? I could have sworn there was a German HQ unit, part of the 21st Panzer. Could be wrong though. As you can see, there's all sorts of units that we can get. Security. Nope. Layer Battalion. HQ. 15. 1032. For some reason I thought that they had a another unit, but I guess not. Okay, that's fine. So there it is. That's a German movement for turn 1. We've got a few battles that we're gonna have to wrap up, and we'll go ahead and knock those out right now. Starting with, let's go ahead and do this Fallschmiger. Actually, let's go ahead and do this one. Alright, so how do you do combat? Combat is really simple. It all comes down to numbers. First thing I like to do is I like to take a look at the defender. He's got a combat factor of 2. He's in the Bocage, so you look up here on Bocage. He can get up to the Bocage gives a 3 defensive combat bonus, but you can only add what your combat factor is. So if he was actually a 3-3 unit, he could claim the entire 3 points for his defensive combat bonus. Because he's a 2-3 unit, he can only take 2. So he's actually sitting as a 4-3 when we look at the combat results chart, and when we factor the numbers to see the ratio of attacker to defender. So for all intents and purposes, with his defensive combat bonus, he is a 4. The attacker, however, you look at his, we're looking at, what's in here, 2 for the armor unit, 4 for the first infantry unit, and another additional 2. So that's 8. So we're looking at an 8-to-4 ratio, which breaks down to what? A 2-to-1 ratio, and then we need to add certain modifiers that will change that. Modifiers that will shift the columns to the left or right, you know, for the attacker versus defender. So right now we're concentrating on the 2-to-1 ratio right now. Because the German has an armor unit with an armor rating of 2, we're going to get a column shift to the right, and it's going to become a 3-1 just to reflect you know, tanks versus infantry. The US player doesn't have any armor, so that's why the German player is getting the shift. If the US player had an armor token here of equal value of a 2, then it would negate the German armor, and then we would stay at a 2-1 ratio. If the defending player had an armor unit with a higher armor value, then the table would actually shift left, and it would be, you know, in the defender's favor, and it would become a 1-to-1 battle. But that hasn't happened here. We're sitting on a 3-to-1, which I may just go ahead and keep it as a 3-to-1, just because I think I can eliminate this unit without the need for calling in artillery. So just like before, we roll a single d6 and we take the result. So we get a 2, which is an exchange. An exchange is each person loses a step on a single token, you know, for the battle. This airborne unit is completely killed, gone, dead. No more 507th. If we're playing a 2-player game, and even a single-player game, usually you get to choose your own token that's killed. Obviously the 507th was eliminated because it was the only one there. But if this was a 2-player game, because it was an exchange result, the defender would choose the attackers, and the attacker would choose the defender's token to be lost. So as the defender, I'm going to want to reduce, probably want to reduce his tank unit here. And as you can see, his tank unit can't be reduced. That's as strong as it is, and it's a single step token. So we're going to go ahead and eliminate that armor. Now it is an exchange result, so each side loses 1 step. There is no retreat. If the defender had only 1 step involved, then the attacker qualifies for a limited advance. A normal advance in any direction is prohibited. I'm not going to worry about advancing in here. I'm kind of wanting to stay here in this town and holding, kind of just being a thorn in the side of the allied player advance. So we'll go ahead and remove that marker. And that was our first combat there, and that actually worked out. I'm going to go and remove that pretty well. So we eliminated completely the 507th of the 82nd there. So moving on to the second battle. Again, we have to look at what he has. He's on bocage, and you always take the highest combat effect possible. So if you've got, you know, like hexes here like this, that's, you know, got woods, a little bit of bocage, you would take the woods just because you're going to get a better defensive bonus for that versus just taking the bocage. So you'd have a 4 instead of a 3, and that makes sense, right? So he's in the bocage, right? There's no town there. Oh, there is a town there. I didn't think there was. So he's going to take a 4. So as he is right now, he's actually sitting as a 6 because he can't take the full 4. He can't take that 4th point because he's only at a strength 3. So you can only take 3. So 3 plus 3 equals 6. So that's not bad. I didn't realize that as a German player. That's going to be hard to kill. and then we need to look at what we have as far as all 3 units here. Now this is kind of a unique example of combat here, and another rule as far as combat goes. When you attack somebody, you have to declare a main assault force. And what a main assault force is if we look at this one, you know, we had 2 units that were from the same, or 2 tokens from the same unit here. So 2 tokens from the 91st. Here we've got one from the 709th, we have one from the 91st, and we have another one from the 709th. All taking part in this battle here. The main attacking force, whichever unit that you decide is going to be your main attacking force, attacks at full strength. So if I chose the 709th as my main attacking force here for this battle, they would attack at full strength. So that would be 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then any ancillary guys would attack at half strength. So it would be 2 for this. You do have a concession of if you only have 1 token in there, extra token, they still attack at full strength, I believe. And let me just go ahead and make a rules clarification for that. Combat results, combat modifiers. So we want to look at main assault force. Here we go. Formations. Is at full. All of the units attack at half strength. Attachment. Any one unit, any size, may temporarily attach to a MAF by simply attacking with one of the units of the MAF. When attacking, they may be considered part of the MAF and are counted full strength instead of half strength. So basically what that means is if I had another unit in here that was not part of the 709th or the 91st, that unit would be considered at half strength. But because I only have one here, because I only have 3 units, 2 from the same unit and 1 from another formation, everybody attacks at full strength. So this is going to be an 8 to a 6, which breaks down to a 1-to-1. The only problem being is they have a higher TQ, which is a troop quality bonus. So we'll look at that. TQ shift. But I don't think it's going to matter as a defender. Where is it? Troop quality shift. The attacker, no, defender, 1 or 2. And they just made it, I think he's got a 0 in there. So there is no TQ shift. There is no armor shift. So this is just a straight, and I don't think he's in range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. This is just going to be a straight 1-to-1 odds battle. So we'll go ahead and roll the die, and we get a 6. A DR is a defender must retreat or conduct a determined defense. If the defender retreats and becomes disrupted, attacker may advance. When you retreat on a DR result, that is a, what is that? I believe that is just 2 hexes. You have to mandatory retreat 2 hexes. Let's see here. Units retreat 4 hexes on a A1D2, and DH units retreat 2 hexes on all the results. Okay, so you have to retreat away from the bad guys if at all possible. Certain types of terrain negate that. So because I'm in the bocage, I can just dip out into another piece of bocage, another hex of bocage, and not have to move that extra one. I can't retreat into a Zachbond. So this right here is actually a Zachbond. Let me go ahead and mark that and I'll show you. That's a Zachbond between those 2 units. That's a Zachbond between them, and that's a Zachbond between them. So the only place I can actually retreat to is down here with the 508th 82nd here. He doesn't take a hit, which is good, but again he is pushed. So we're going to go ahead and move him there, move a scatter token with him, and that's it. Now I can advance, and he is actually disrupted. So let's look at that. Markers, disrupted. There we go. And that only applies for him. And what I like to do is I actually like to put the token, the disrupted tokens right on him. So if we look at this, you know, if we hover the mouse over the stack, we can see, you know, the 508th just had scattered, the 505th is disrupted and scattered. And again, that's just for easy management of all the tokens. Now on a DR result, I can advance. So I do want to take St. Mariglis. I want to take that town. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everybody in there. And I'm not pushing my limits. So he's a 4, so that's 2 tokens. Or towards my stacking count. So that's 2. Let's just hover the mouse. 2, 1, and 1. So that's 4. So I meet my requirements for stacking. I'm not overstacked. You can overstack, but you get some bad results when you start to overstack. Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. You can't overstack. I'm thinking of another game. Sorry. So yeah. So we've taken St. Mariglis as the Germans. We're going to do these guys here. And the 501st is sitting on a chunk of Bocage. So they are going to get 3, so they're actually a 7, and they'll get the full 3 because they're at a 4 combat factor. So 4 plus 3 equals 7 against 5, 2, and 1. So against 9. So it's going to be a 1-to-1 odds. We can't use this HQ unit down here to call an artillery because he's moved beyond 1 hex. They're both +1 units here. So again, this is going to be a 1-to-1 odds on the table. We're going to roll the dice. We get a 2. Great. So the attacker loses a token. So that's an A1 result. So the attacker loses 1 step, no retreat or advance after combat. And actually that's from his main assault force, which would have been the Fallschirmjäger. Actually I can choose it from whatever because there's only 3 tokens there. So he gets deleted because you can't reduce him a step. And that's it. No retreat or advance after combat. So the 501st held their ground there. Not too shabby. And I believe there was one more attack. Wasn't there? Yep. So we'll go ahead and do this last German attack, and that's going to wrap up the turn. Actually, there's 2 more. That's not too bad. Let's see. Alright, so this guy here is actually in mixed terrain. So his assault bonus is just going to be 2. So he's sitting at a 5 for the allied player. So 3 plus 2 equals 5. And the German units here is a 4, 4, 2. So that's 8, 9, 10. So at 10 to 5, that's 2-to-1 odds. But the allied player is actually going to get a column shift. So if we look, they're sitting on a 2-to-1 odds for the German. But if you look at the German player, if you look at the troop quality, they're all -1. That number, that dash number there on the right-hand side of the NATO symbol. So these aren't really great troops. Whereas the paratroopers here for the Brits are a +1. So they're actually going to get the troop quality shift. So instead, and it'll be left in favor of the defender. So instead of it being a 2-1 result, it's going to be a 1-1 result. Or we're going to roll on the 1-1 ratio table. They get a 5, which is a DR. Defender retreats. I'm going to retreat them into the woods. That marker is removed, and they can advance further in. And they're actually disrupted, because you get disrupted when you retreat. And I'm trying to think if yeah, I did. Okay, I was just making sure that I put that disruption counter on those other guys over there, and I did. So do the last battle here. So they're sitting on a 1. They're reduced. They are in mixed terrain, so they can only get a combat defensive combat bonus of +1. So they're actually a 2 versus 3, 9. So that's what, a 4-to-1 odds. They are +1 quality, but we've got some +1 quality troops on the German side as well. So nobody's going to get a troop quality shift. So we're sitting on 2 to 9s, 2 to 4. Yeah, it's going to be a 4-to-1 odds, and I have a feeling that these troops are going to get hammered here. So we'll roll the dice. It's a 2 actually. Defender retreats. They got lucky. I'll go ahead and put the disruption counter on them now. And we're going to have them retreat. I'm going to push them to the woods as well. Hopefully they'll just gain a little bit more defense up there. And with that being said, I'm trying to guess. Now, when you do advance after an enemy unit has retreated, you don't necessarily have to advance into the hex that they vacated. You can advance in any hex anywhere, so you can go backwards, forwards, left, right, and I want to say it's 2 hexes. Let me look at advancing, length of advance, up to 2 hexes, yeah. So I'm actually going to move them 1, 2 into Khan here. Just because I know that the British paras here, they're pretty beat up, they're disrupted, they're not going to do anything this turn because they're disrupted. And I'm just gonna, again, I'm just biding my time as the German player until we start getting reinforcements. So let me just go ahead and double check here, make sure that that's all of the combat for the German turn. I don't see any more markers, so that's it. So looking at this, we go to the reserve combat phase, reserve movement. We didn't have any reserve movement, reserve combat. Recovery, there's nothing here to recover. We're not removing the recovery and supply phase. That's when you'd remove the scattered or disrupted tokens, upon your units. As a German player this first turn, there are none, so we don't have to remove any. So that's it for the German turn, and then now it's actually the Allied player's first turn of the game. But I'm going to save that for the next video, guys. This video is getting kind of long. But yeah, so that's how it's going. That's what the map looks like so far. We're halfway through turn 1. The Allies have taken, some losses. They completely lost that unit of the 507th, of the 82nd there. And then along the beach landings, a lot of these infantry units here from the Commonwealth forces took a beating, and so did the infantry units here at Omaha. I am concerned as a German player about this stack right here, landing on Utah. They're going to cause a lot of problems, and as the Allied player, what you really want to do is you want to cut this peninsula off, because you're going to cut the supply lines to Cherbourg, and that's just a good way to seal a quick victory. So with that being said, guys, appreciate your time here. If you like this stuff, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more. I enjoy these types of games, as you've seen, me playing Flashpoint campaigns, Red Storm, and other games like that. So yeah, leave comments down below if you like it. Let me know if you like it, let me know if you don't like it, let me know what your thoughts about how the battle is progressing, what maybe I should have done, who knows. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.